happy Halloween, and welcome to the Press Box. I'm Vanessa Johnson, and for the next 30 minutes, I'll be your host. With me are Ty Reynolds and Jay Marcks, the masked man.
Hi, how you doing?
Coach Holmgren to me.
It's Mike Holmgren. I got a flight out to that Chicago game.
Immediately after, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're that confident that you're not worried about being with your players before the game?
No, we had a players-only meeting, and Reggie White and Guy McIntyre did all the talking for me.
Well, that's pretty good company.
Okay. Before we get started, I'd like to remind our viewers that this is a live show. So if you have any questions you want to ask, give us a call at 873-6713. Okay, guys, we got to start with college football. Georgia, another embarrassing loss. How will this affect the program?
Another embarrassing loss for Georgia is nothing new here. Georgia's had embarrassing losses to Tennessee and Vanderbilt this year. Bray Goff, like we said before on the show a couple of weeks ago, I think he's gone. The only question is, who's the new coach coming in? There's been a lot of talk that it would be Mack Brown out of North Carolina. However, I feel that Brown may want to stay in the ACC. He's a Florida State person. I think he may try and hold out for that particular job when Bowden leaves. There's been talk about Ray Sherman, the offensive coordinator with the Jets, who was previously an assistant coach at Georgia and recruited Rodney Hampton. I don't think that that's going to be the coach either. I think the front runner, and this is my prediction, I think Georgia's going to go for Dennis Erickson down at Miami. He's not very happy down there. His wife hates the area. She really started hating the area when the hurricane came around. And the people down there at Miami aren't that crazy about Erickson. I think that he's the front runner here, and I think that's the man that they may want. If that falls through, I think that they're going to go with the former assistant, Steve Ensminger, who was a quarterback coach at Georgia a couple of years ago and was hired away by R.C. Slocum at Texas A&M and is now the offensive coordinator out there. I think he would be very interested in coming back and taking the job at Georgia. But I really think that Erickson is the man that Georgia wants.
I don't know. I think Erickson probably will want to step up into the pro ranks. I think he's a good enough coach. And because he's coached at Miami, he's handled pro players all his tenure there. And as far as Ensminger, I think that, to tell you the truth, that would be like Ray Goff, a situation where I don't think that guy's ready to handle a head coaching job, much less a major program like Georgia. But getting back to the game, I don't think this loss was as embarrassing as the Vanderbilt loss because they were picked to lose by 20-some points. And Florida got about 20 points off of directly off of turnovers. They scored twice on their defense scored twice, and then once they ran it back to like about the 10, 12-yard line. So that game panned out the way everyone really thought it was going to pan out, except for those turnover touchdowns. Whereas I think the Vanderbilt game, it was homecoming, I believe.
Exactly.
And all the boosters with all the cash were there, and they watched them lose.
Keyword,
they watched
Jay, cash.
They watched them get drubbed, and I really think that that's when everybody went, that's it for him. That's it for golf. I think we touched on it last week. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter if he beats Florida. It doesn't matter if he beats Auburn. I really think that he was gone after that homecoming loss to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I can go for that. I honestly thought he was gone earlier in the year, but then a lot of these other people with the cash have a lot more patience than I do personally. Jay, going back to that Florida game, you're right about the turnovers. That turned everything around. If Georgia sits there and maintains their composure, and if Larry Bowie doesn't drop a simple pass over the middle, they're driving to make it 17-10 or 17-14. I don't know how much of a difference that would have made in the game, but certainly I think it would have been closer than 38 points. There are so many weaknesses in this Georgia team where they do so many things poorly that Eric Zire and his offense has to go out and take chances, and Zire has to feel that he has to make a big play all the time so they can have a chance to stay in the game. This is the worst defense in the SEC, I think. And so when you have a terrible team, they have terrible special teams, they have terrible defense, that the offense just puts the responsibility of winning the game on their shoulders. And when you do things like that, you're going to make mistakes, especially on the road against a good team in a hostile environment.
Yeah, I think their defensive line is definitely their weak point. That's why they can't stop a running attack. When they go up against a passing attack, they don't get any pressure on. That's why I don't think Marion Campbell will be elevated to head coach after the season's over. Do you, Ty?
No, I think you're right there, Jay.
I agree. Okay, again, I would like to remind our viewers that this is a live show. So if you have any questions you want to ask, give us a call at 873-6713. Okay, Ty, you were mentioning replacements for Georgia. I heard on 680 today a lot of Georgia fans calling in and say they wanted Pat Dye.
Well, that would be a mistake. First of all, you never do know what's going to come with Pat Dye. He's got a black cloud over his head. And you saw the Eric Ramsey incident. What if there was another player that the boosters did where they handled another player like they would have handled Eric Ramsey. Who's to say that there's not another Eric Ramsey out there who played football at Auburn? There's just no way you could ever take a chance like that. If he comes to Georgia, you may have to make wholesale changes again because there might be someone in the past coming up and say, hey, this guy gave me money, and then here you go. It starts all over again. You can't afford to do that.
Okay.
I think Pat Dye got a bad rap on that. Here was a guy, he was poor, he had an infant baby, he needed formula, and so that's why he gave him money. It was a humanitarian thing. It wasn't an illegal kind of transaction.
Yeah, it's amazing these humanitarian things come up with guys who can run a 4.4 40 and that are about 6 foot, 195 pounds.
I don't know. I don't think Dye will coach at Georgia, though, because there's also health concerns, isn't it? Doesn't he in poor health or something? Or did this Ramsey incident give him a bad heart or something?
That was a concern, but he says he's all better now, so we'll have to wait and see.
And I think his wife is in tight with the first lady of Georgia Athletics, right?
Maybe.
So he may have the inside track, but he won't come there. I think they'll probably go to another program and take an established coach.
Okay. Well, we have a phone call. Thank you for calling, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, Vanessa. How are you?
Fine.
Good. What is it with the Georgia running backs? Why is it that they haven't really had a pure running back since Herschel? And how can we alleviate that problem?
Well, I think that Georgia's had a couple of good running backs since Herschel. Thanks for the phone call. Georgia is definitely lacking a running game right now, but after Herschel Walker left, you've had Lars Tate, you've had Keith Henderson, you've had Tim Morley. All those guys spent time in the NFL.
And in drug rehab, right?
Well, I can't help it that Tim Morley picks up bad habits with the pros.
All right.
Let's
They've also had Garrison Hurst. And,
there's Garrison
Rodney
Hurst
Hampton.
and Rodney Hampton.
Yeah.
Those are all NFL players. The problem is that when Garrison Hurst left a year early, Georgia needed to recruit a running back out of Columbus, Georgia, named Mo Williams. Well, Ray screwed up the recruiting with him, and Mo Williams decided to go to Kentucky where his father is up in the military. Ever since Mo Williams has left, there hasn't been many outstanding running backs in the state of Georgia, and Georgia's lost a lot of recruiting battles. And here it is, you finally get one in George Lombard, and then he goes and signs a baseball contract. I think that Georgia's just had a few bad breaks, but the caller's right. There are not any good running backs over there at Georgia, and it shows because they had to take a high school quarterback and convert him into running back.
But that's just this year. I think the caller said that there wasn't a good back there since Herschel Walker, and that we obviously know that's wrong because of the list we just listed. But this year, yeah, it seemed like coming out of training camp, they had several, right, that they were going to be great, and I don't know if they're injured or whatever, but they don't have a running game, and part of that is their offensive line, I think. Their offensive line plays like their defensive line, which is non-existent. However, they know how to pass protect. They haven't taught them drive blocking there, though, and so some of it is a coaching problem, but some of it is, like you said, they had a bad break here or there with recruiting with the Lombard guy. But I don't think he would have stepped in and played this year, do you?
I don't know. I was a little concerned about Lombard because here it is. Here's a guy with all the size and speed, yet he only averaged 6 yards a carry in double-A ball. To give you an idea, Frank Harvey down there at Dawson County, when he was a senior in high school, averaged 10 yards a carry and was converted into a fullback, and he played tailback in high school. I just don't think those were good enough statistics to really show that he could have taken the job at a major SEC school and take over the tailback position.
But the bottom line is, at Georgia, right now, the problem with the running game is philosophical. Their committed desire in the passing game, they're not going to develop a running game, and they haven't, and it's hurt, because Zaire would be twice as good if they had a running game.
Oh, well, certainly they would, but I just don't think the tailbacks they have are very good.
Good point. Well, we have another phone call. Thank you for calling, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, Vanessa.
Hi.
Y'all were talking about replacements, and I was just wondering what's up with Bill Lewis at Georgia Tech.
Bill
Tech.
Lewis.
Yeah,
Yes.
Georgia
Bill Lewis
Tech.
at Tech. Well,
Thanks for the call.
Jay, I think Bill Lewis is another man on the hot seat, and there's been a lot of talk about George O'Leary replacing him. But I don't think that may happen. I think Georgia Tech may go after an established name. Dick Sheridan, the former coach at North Carolina State, has been out of the business for a little while and might want to get back in. I think Sheridan would be very interested in the Tech job if he did have an urge to come back and coach college football.
I think he wants to be the AD and the head coach, though, and that's kind of a sticking point with the Tech program. They already have their athletic director in place, and so they're just looking for a head coach. However, I've heard from a source close to the program that Bill Lewis might quit before he's fired. he may step down. There's been numerous rumors about how the players hate him, and that always makes for a bad program because the players aren't going to play for you. But you know, he may be overmatched. I think that he came from a small program. What was it, East Carolina or something like that? And I don't think he may be not so much in the Ray Goff boat, but like this Tech had won a national championship, and the ACC has gotten better and better in a competitive sense every week. And he wasn't ready to step in and take the players he had. He doesn't have any depth because they didn't do any recruiting, and so he's sort of sunk his own ship there at Tech. So it'll be interesting to see, but I don't think, from following the Tech program in years past, that they'll can him. I think they will always give him another year, and Tech people are always overly optimistic about their sports program, especially football. However, I think that Lewis may step aside when he sees the handwriting on the wall.
Okay. Well, we have a phone call. Thank you for calling, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, what up, Vanessa? I just want to talk about the Falcons. They were off this week. What do you think about their playing the Chargers? How do you think their chances are? I think they don't have a chance against them, but what do you guys think?
Okay, thanks for the phone call. Jay?
I think they have no chance against the Chargers. Chargers have a good running game and a decent offensive line. These are the teams that handle the Falcons because the Falcons' defensive line is just non-existent. Pierce Holt, I think, may be a little past his prime. Chris Dolman's too busy pouting. And the other guys, you can't even name them, can you, Ty? Who else is on the defensive line? So I think the Falcons...
They're the guys that are getting blocked down to the ground and you can't see their numbers.
The Falcons' weakest, I think, link in their football team is their defensive line, and that's the kind of team that the Chargers will handle effectively. They got Natrone Means Business, as Chris Berman calls him, and that guy will slam it at you. And if they can't stop the run, the Chargers will just keep handing the ball off to them. And they got a decent play-action quarterback in Humphreys, whether his ankle is decent or not. I don't think they'll need him. They'll need him his passing attack because, like I said, I think the Chargers will just slam the ball at the Falcons and eat them alive on the ground.
It's a major consensus. I agree with the caller and Jay. The Falcons have shown that they can beat a bad team on the road and they can beat a bad team at home. If you have a good team coming in like the Chiefs or the 49ers, they get beat, and they get beat convincingly. The Chargers are a good team. They're going to lose. Plain and simple, the Falcons don't have a chance against those guys. San Diego, if they come in and make a ton of mistakes, that's the only chance the Falcons have. But the Falcons have been a team that have made a ton of mistakes themselves. So even if San Diego doesn't have their quarterback, I think the Falcons could just shoot themselves in the foot by making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, June Jones will be the first one to tell you that he's feeling his way along. He's made some mistakes. He's openly admitted it in his press conferences that he's, sort of not used to, quote unquote, being the head coach. And so he's made some on-field decisions that maybe cost him a couple games, and he's willing to take that rap. But he's learning, and he's going to be better for it. And he's, unlike Henning, who used to refer to the team as they, he refers to them as we,
Right.
and we make mistakes, him included. And so consequently, I think that in a coaching matchup here, Bobby Ross has it all over him. I mean, not only was Ross a good college coach, but he stepped into the pro ranks, and now he's an experienced, good, I'd say, NFL coach. And so he'll outcoach June Jones, plus the matchups we just talked about. I think the Chargers should handle the Falcons.
Yeah, let's face it. I mean, San Diego's got the second best offense in the NFL with 220 points. That's something like, an average of 27 a game. That's too much for the Falcons.
Okay. Well, we have another phone call. Thank you for calling, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, how y'all doing?
All right.
Hi.
Well, I just had a couple comments about George Lombard y'all were just talking about.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I guess y'all said he, only averaged 6 a carry or whatever for us last year, but I played Levitt last year. I played guard, and I guess y'all never saw us play, but I think there are two things I need to tell you about why George only got 6 a carry. His junior year, he had 13 a carry, but last year we ran one play we called the G22 right stall, on which we would give it to George when we had 30, 40 seconds left in the game. He'd go backwards, and he was so fast that he eluded players, and in 2 games we used it, and he lost 40 yards on the last play, but he ran out the clock to win us the game, and that cost him 3 yards a carry. And second is our quarterback missed the last 5 games of the year, and we ran a single wing offense. The ball was snapped directly to George, and he just, we didn't have a quarterback. And so if you show me a guy can average 10 a carry without a quarterback, I'll show you the best player in the world.
Okay, thanks for the call.
That was some interesting insight.
Yeah.
I thought when he said he played guard for Lovett, he was going to say it was the offensive line's fault he didn't get about 6 yards a carry. But that is interesting that they used a stall play and it decreased his yardage. But hey, that figures into the statistics, right, Ty?
Well, I tell you what, when you look at Lovett, they were a Class AA club, and what I remember most about their season last year was their playoff loss over there to Washington. But Washington's a #1 team in the state this year, and it's going to show they're going to have 3 big-time Division 1A prospects at least. So that was a big-time team that they lost to in the playoffs. The way I just look at it, though, I think that when I look at the numbers, I look at a high school back having an average about 10 yards a carry to really show me that he's that type of a player. Now, he may have given me some insight that I don't know, and no, I didn't watch Lovett play high school football last year.
Because they were AA. It wasn't worth watching, Ty.
I like
There's so many good AAA and quad A games.
I like single A games, and I like AA games. I think the trip over there to Lincoln County is a great trip to watch some good single A football. They developed some big-time players. But again, over there at Lincoln County, when Garrison Hurst came out, there was a guy that averaged 10 yards a carry. But then again, what I hope is that George Lombard, if he ever considers coming back and playing football, I'd really love to see him come back and play at Georgia. I think that they have an open door for him.
I don't think he can now.
He can come back.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
If he wants to.
Well, we have another phone call. Thank you for calling. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, ma'am. Vanessa, I'd like to say one thing first of all to you. I think you're a very attractive young lady.
Thank you.
And I'd like to ask all y'all, what's the story with Derek Stegall? How's his arm? The press has kind of not really highlighted on him lately. I mean, how's he doing?
He's out for the
No,
year.
I think he's gone.
Yeah, he's out for the year. I don't think he has a chance to come back. He'll play next year, right? And if Tech gets a new coach, they may contend.
Well,
They misused him anyway, I think.
They did. And Derek Stegall has to be kicking himself around. This guy should have gone to Alabama. David Palmer was in the perfect offense over there and is playing in the NFL right now. Derek Stegall could have gone in there, replaced David Palmer, who left early, and played that little flanker position where they sometimes use Palmer at quarterback, and they used him on little end-around plays, and they even used him some at quarterback. I think that that's the perfect system for a guy like Stegall. I really think he made a bad decision in going to Tech. Although, who knows, maybe Tech will get someone in new and will come in with a new offense. Jay's right. I don't think they used him the way they should have. And the perfect way to use a guy like Stegall is like the way Alabama used Palmer.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're going to use him as a receiver, you got to put him in a slot, give him the ball, a couple reverses, you know what I mean? They really misused him. I don't know whether he made the wrong decision to go to Tech because I'm sure he's going to get a better education over at Tech than he would at Alabama. So as far as going to college, don't student athletes still pick a college as to how their academics are, Ty?
I don't know, Jay. You tell me. You were telling me last week it was the amount of cash they got paid.
Yeah, that too. Academics and cash. Those are the two reasons student athletes pick colleges.
Okay, well, we have a phone call. Thank you for calling. Caller, you're on the air.
How you guys doing today?
All right.
Fine.
Vanessa, you looking lovely as usual.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Let me ask you about Georgia Tech, the program, both them and Georgia. I was listening to some guys talk today at work, and they were saying that, like after the Jan Kemp incident, they think a lot of this had to do with the downfall of Georgia, as far as like being able to recruit certain players, things like that. And I want to ask you about that. What you think about that? And if Georgia Tech, what type of coach do you think they might bring in? Somebody, if they do, get rid of Bill Lewis this year, you think they'll bring in somebody who's maybe who was a good recruiter, such as like a Bill Curry, so like the boy next door type of coach, whatever, like to bring some stability back to the program, or do you think they might go after somebody like what Georgia might do, such as a Dennis Erickson or stuff like that? What do you think, might be good for the program? And I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, thanks for the call. We already mentioned that I think that Georgia Tech is going to pursue someone like Dick Sheridan. And Jay, you...
I don't think. I think that Sheraton needs too much power. However, I think the differences in the programs, the guy brought up a good point. If Georgia and Georgia Tech are each looking for head coaches, Georgia needs a guy that can go out there and get the good athletes. He's right. I think after the Jan Kemp incident, a lot of the Georgia recruiters backed off of, say, the Prop 48 kids. They weren't willing to work with them, you know. I mean, who's to say that a kid after, say, 1 year in junior college or in a remedial program wouldn't step up and make the grades? And I think they really shied away from that type of athlete. However, the Georgia Tech program needs somebody like an Ivy League coach, you know, or someone that's that can get your players to overachieve. Somebody like the Duke guy.
I knew you were going to say Fred
And-
Goldsmith.
or the Vanderbilt coach. I mean, you've seen it before. When you have an institution where it takes a lot of studying to get through the curriculum or the academic part, you really can't bombard that guy with football stuff. You have to be a good game day coach. You have to get a lot out of that guy on that game day because he spent a lot of his preparation time hitting the books, okay? And so these are the kind of coaches like at a Dartmouth or at a Cornell or somewhere like that where they go into the classroom and recruit from there. So I think that's the kind of guy that Tech needs. And then they need to get back to the fact that and promote the school from a good engineering perspective, and then the football and the basketball will follow. I think that's where they need to go in their program. Whereas Georgia's totally different. Georgia needs a better overall head coach, a guy that'll just come in and seize control and take command of the whole thing, recruiting, everything.
Well, the Jan Kemp thing did hurt Georgia, but Georgia people should. I hate looking at academics as an excuse. I think that's for losers. I think that you need to come out there and you need to find a coach that can look at the rules and the policies of the school. Right now, the rule is you have to have 11 core classes to get to play Division 1A football. Well, at Georgia, you have to have 15. Georgia also has another rule that says they can only accept 4 players who can have less than an 850 and a 2.6. That takes out a lot of people who you can recruit. But I still think if you're a good coach, that you can live with those rules and you can still build a winner. Yeah, it's true. Florida, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, South Carolina, they get to load up on 2.1 and 710 SATs. But I still think you can find a lot of good football players who can make 900s and have 2.5s and 2.6s. I don't like looking at academics as being a reason of losing. I just think that you're crying when you do that.
But they did overreact to the Jan Kemp thing by setting their standards higher than the other SEC schools.
Maybe they
and
did,
so
but
in
I
response
think
to the caller, that he
I
was
think you
right.
can win.
They
Yeah.
overreacted to the Jan Kemp thing, and that hurt them in the recruiting. But
true.
you're right. They can win by recruiting smarter athletes.
Oh, they have.
Well,
There's 3 guys on the starting offensive line that have over 1,000 SATs. They just can't run block.
They probably can't understand Ray Goff because he only got like 550 on his.
Are you sure about that?
okay, I didn't say
Well,
that.
Jay, you were in the same classes with him, huh?
I'm just kidding. I don't know really what his SAT score was.
Okay, well, we have another phone call. Thank you for calling. Calling you on the air.
So, Jay, does this mean that you are eliminating yourself from consideration as Georgia head coach?
Yeah, they need to consider Ty. He has all the info.
No, I want to be athletic director.
Okay.
Well, thanks for the call.
Well, they
Ty, there's the
left
first
us.
word out on the street. We're promoting Ty for head coach at Georgia.
Okay.
No, I don't want it.
Another thing about college football. Who's number 1?
Well, that's a good question. Here it is, 2 out of the 3 polls say Nebraska. Personally, I like Nebraska. Penn State, the only quality wins they basically have is a little win at Michigan on the road, and Michigan got beat pretty good by Wisconsin in Ann Arbor last weekend. I don't think that's a very good win for Penn State, actually. I don't know how many quality wins they have. Can you call the Michigan win quality? I don't know.
Yeah.
This Colorado team creamed Wisconsin. This Colorado team went into Ann Arbor and beat Michigan. Nebraska killed Colorado. I like Nebraska as number 1. And not only that, in the Rose Bowl, I think that Penn State will play a team like Arizona or Oregon. Right now, Oregon is the best chance to go to the Rose Bowl representing the Pac-10. They only have games left at Oregon State and at Stanford. I think they can win both of those games. So if Penn State has to play in the Rose Bowl against Oregon, forget it. I don't think the voters are going to like it. If Nebraska, it looks like they're going to go down there to the Orange Bowl and have to play Miami, which is basically a home game for Miami. So if Nebraska wins that, I don't think there's any doubt they'll be voted number 1.
I like Nebraska at number 1 too.
Penn State. How can you take a quality team like Ohio State in the Big Ten, throw them aside like they're some rag doll, and not be one of the best teams in the country?
If they're so quality, how come they're going to fire their coach after they get beat by Michigan this year?
Nah, I don't think so.
Well, we have a phone call. Thank you for calling. Calling you on the air.
Hey, I'm calling from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Oh boy, how's the weather?
Hey, it's great. First of all, I just want to say the Packers are forced to take the G off their helmet because the last team that played on TV had a red helmet with a G, and it was awful.
Hey, I guess you
Okay.
can't see our show. We got Mike Holmgren as a guest here on the show for Halloween.
Well, there's 30-mile-an-hour winds at Soldier Field, and it's raining. Good thing the Packers have the best defense in the NFL.
They do with that. Thanks for the
That's
call.
going to be a good match.
Sorry you had to
Okay.
pay for it.
Let's
Long
talk about
distance
that
from Green Bay.
matchup.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, be sure to join us at Dirty Owls immediately following the show where we have the Monday Night Football clash. Green Bay, Chicago. What do
Well,
you like?
personally, I like Green Bay in this game. They've got the best defense in the NFL. Jay pointed this out to me weeks ago, and I refused to believe it until I saw that game with Minnesota. But Green Bay should have won that game at Minnesota, actually. They gave up a touchdown to Minnesota's defense with a foolish mistake. If Green Bay doesn't make these stupid mistakes, I think that Chicago is not nearly as good as Minnesota. I think Green Bay is just the better team that's going to win this football game.
Hey, it's the 147th meeting of these teams. That's the definition of a rivalry. You can talk about Georgia, Florida, or Auburn, Alabama, but the Packers and the Bears are the premier rivalry in football, and I think that if Favre doesn't screw up and cost them the game, the Packers defense should prevail tonight. They got Reggie White, the Minister of Defense, and so he'll stick his head in the huddle and stop the Bears.
Okay. Well, that about wraps it up. I'd like to thank you guys.
It was fun.
Okay.
Join us at Dirty Owls.
Exactly. And thank our callers and viewers for watching the show. Be sure to join us at Dirty Owls again immediately following the show for the Monday Night Football clash. And we'll see you next week, same time, same channel.